Growing up, I lived in a big city with my folks. Our home was a simple two-room apartment, and I was the only kid they had. Now, some folks might think it'd be kind of boring not having siblings, but honestly, it wasn't that bad. Our place was smack in the middle of the city, and there was always something happening outside. Plus, I had plenty of pals around, and most of them were my age. One of my closest buddies was named Bob. Bob lived just a few blocks away in another apartment building. Now, Bob wasn't much of a city person. In fact, he always said he dreamed of living out in the country where there were lots of open spaces and where he could really enjoy nature. Time flew by, and soon we were finishing high school. After graduation, I went off to university in another town, while Bob, he decided to see the world carrying just a backpack. He had this wild spirit about him. Me? I was always the more down-to-earth kind, so our choices after school made sense. Even with the distance, we didn't lose touch. We'd send messages or call from time to time, but the truth is, we hadn't seen each other face to face since our school days. After getting my degree, I found out that Bob had settled in a little town just a couple of hours' drive from where I was. I thought, why not? It's time for a reunion. So one summer, when work was kind of slow, I took a couple of days off and headed to that town. As I entered the town, it felt like I was entering a different world. It was so peaceful and away from the hustle and bustle. The town had this old-world charm with its woods and lakes. Sure, it had a lively bar, but other than that, it was mostly nature. This little town had just a handful of folks living there. Cute little homes dotted the winding roads that led to a charming town square. I took my time driving through, enjoying the sights. Finally, I pulled out my phone to check the map to Bob's place. Soon enough, I was standing outside his front door, knocking softly. 1,000 thoughts raced through my mind. What if he's changed? What if we have nothing in common anymore? As the door creaked open, there he was, Bob. He had grown a beard and looked a bit more rugged, but deep down, he was the same old friend. It felt like old times. We caught up and decided to head to the town's bar for some grub. The bar was pretty packed for a little town, with maybe 30 to 40 folks chatting and having a good time. We settled into a cozy booth. I was just about to dig into my meal when a loud voice caught my attention. Across from our booth sat a man, older than us, maybe in his 40s, wearing a worn-out cap and an ordinary gray tee. He was big-built and sat with an air of confidence. "What's up with that guy?" I whispered to Bob, pointing subtly. "Oh, that's Tom," Bob replied in a low tone. "He's a bit of a troublemaker around here." Just then, I watched as Tom snapped at the young waitress, criticizing her for being slow. I shot Bob a worried glance. Bob just shook his head. Best to stay away from him. Bob and I continued our meal, trying our best to keep the conversation flowing and ignoring the loud guy Tom. My heart always feels heavy when I see folks being mean to servers. My mom used to work in a diner, so I knew firsthand how hard that job can be. Bob and I chatted for a good while. We talked about old times, shared a couple of laughs, and even had some drinks. Tom was still there, getting louder and more annoying with each drink. He was clearly tipsy. Still, we didn't let that bother us too much. We were lost in our stories and memories. It got pretty late, and we decided to call it a night. Bob led me to his place where he had prepared a room for me. It was simple but cozy. The only window in the room faced the street, and to give me a bit more privacy, Bob had put up an old white sheet as a curtain. I could see the soft glow of the streetlights seeping through. I settled in, but sleep didn't come easy. I was still thinking about the evening when a distant shout pierced the quiet night. It sounded like it came from near the bar. Curiosity got the better of me. I quickly put on some shoes and tiptoed out of Bob's place, making my way towards the noise. Turning a corner, I spotted a small group of guys standing near the alleyway beside the bar. The only source of light was a flickering street lamp which cast an eerie glow. I stayed hidden behind a nearby bush. peeking out carefully. What I saw next made my heart race. One of the guys stepped back and revealed Tom lying motionless on the ground. He looked like he had been in a fight, and it didn't look good. My breath caught in my throat. Before I could fully process what was happening, two guys from the group started lifting Tom and placed him in the back of a nearby parked car. I panicked. Sprinting back to Bob's place, I rushed into his room, shaking him awake. I described everything, and together we called the police. Their response was far from reassuring. The officer on the line didn't sound too concerned. He told us they'd check it out, but didn't even send someone to take down my statement. We felt uneasy. When morning came, we headed to the local police station, hoping they'd take my account more seriously in person. They told us the matter was under investigation, but something felt off about the whole thing. Feeling a mixture of fear and unease, I decided it was best to cut my visit short. I left that very afternoon, hoping the cops would indeed look into that terrifying incident. Tom might not have been the nicest guy, but no one deserved what he had gone through. I'm a 23-year-old lady named Emma, and I have Cherokee roots from the state of Georgia in the USA. When this tale happened, my soon-to-be husband Jake and I were staying at a big farm place in Maryland. The interesting part? We weren't actually farmers. Instead, we lived in a cozy little house on this big property. We could stroll anywhere we wanted on this vast land. During this time, I was just 19 years old. It was just me, Jake, our funny little cat named Whiskers, and our dog, Bella. Whiskers was this crazy little feline who had been living in the barn when we got there. I just couldn't resist saving him because I have a huge soft spot for animals in need. Bella, on the other hand, was a super loyal pit bull. You'd think she'd be tough, right? Nope, she was a big ball of fluff on the inside, scared of nearly everything, even tiny bugs. Even though she weighed 75 pounds, Bella often acted like a tiny puppy who'd get scared by the smallest noise. Our home was tucked inside a whopping 20 acres of land. The driveway that led to our house was pretty long, half a mile if I had to guess. When I'd come back from my job, it became a routine to take Bella out for her evening stroll. Often Jake would come with, not because of safety or anything. I was pretty brave myself. More so because Jake had a habit of playing video games a tad too much. Getting him out was a way to ensure he got some fresh air. Past our driveway was a road stretching for 12 long miles. This road was surrounded by nature, farms, woods, and more farms. It was a serene escape. After a while, this road would lead you back to the busier part of town. For the most part, it was just us, the vast open spaces, and our landlord who lived a distance away. Our journey usually started with open farmland, then a little forested area. After this, it was wheat fields for about half a mile and then dense woods again. This particular day was no different. Jake and I came back from work, greeted by our joyous little home and excited pets. Bella especially was eager for her walk. I changed into more comfortable clothes for the walk and invited Jake. He declined, saying he had seen a coyote nearby. I found this funny since coyotes aren't that big a threat here. They mostly keep to themselves, hunting small animals or scavenging. I teased him a bit, calling him overly cautious, and decided to take Bella out anyway. We left our home, and the sun was just setting, casting a golden-orange hue everywhere. The wind made the tall corn beside our driveway sway. This corn was so tall and dense that you couldn't see past it. I thought maybe Jake made up the coyote story just to tease me, given he couldn't possibly have seen through this corn. Bella was having the time of her life, darting in and out of the corn, playing around. I wasn't worried. Knowing her, she'd be the first to dart back home if there was any hint of danger. Once we reached the road's end, the sun had completely set, and the moonlight bathed the landscape. The moon was bright enough that I didn't feel the need to use my flashlight. Turning left, Bella and I walked across the soybean field. These plants are pretty short, so only something as small as a bunny could be hiding there. A few deer were grazing in the distance, which was a calming sight. Everything felt peaceful. In the midst of this serenity, I tossed a stick, and Bella, being the playful dog she was, fetched it. We continued this game for a while, just enjoying the simple pleasures of the evening. Emma and Bella reached a group of trees on their walk. Bella nudged my leg with her nose, signaling that something was ahead. It wasn't a coyote, but rather a hurt rabbit lying on the ground. It had been hit by a car and was in pain. I felt bad for the rabbit. Growing up, my family taught me the right way to handle situations like this. So, I used my small pocket knife to end its suffering quickly. It was a sad moment, but I knew it was the right thing to do. I took a deep breath and continued our walk, hoping to move on from the sad scene. We then walked into a field full of tall wheat, which swayed gently with the wind. Everything was calm, but suddenly, Bella growled softly. I heard noises from the wheat field. I spotted a few tails that looked like they belonged to coyotes. I knew that while individual coyotes might not be very dangerous, a pack could be intimidating. Holding Bella close, I shouted, "Shoo, go away!" My shout startled the coyotes and they ran away into the forest. I decided it was best to head back home. No point in taking chances, right? As we were turning to leave, there was more rustling in the wheat. Bella stood still, her eyes fixed on something. I tried to get her attention by whistling, the loud type you do with 2 fingers. But then, to my surprise, the same whistle echoed back from the wheat field. Chills ran down my spine. I remembered old family tales about strange beings in the woods. Nervously, I called out, "Who's there?" My own voice echoed back, "Who's there?" I gripped my pocket knife tightly, preparing for anything. Summoning some courage, I turned on my flashlight and pointed it towards the wheat field. The sight was baffling. There were bright, animal-like eyes reflecting back, but they belonged to a young girl, maybe about 14 or 15. She wore clothes made of animal skins, and her pale skin looked like it had never seen the sun. Her long hair was messy and mixed with twigs and leaves. She looked wild, yet strangely beautiful. We just stared at each other for what felt like forever, until a coyote's howl broke the silence. Instantly, the mysterious girl disappeared into the wheat field, and Bella, sensing my fear, pulled me towards our house. We ran till we reached our driveway. I decided not to tell Jake about the strange encounter. I didn't want him to panic or do something rash. That night, I heard coyotes howling outside, making me wonder if the girl was somehow connected to them. A month later, while driving home, I had to slam my brakes suddenly. In the dim light, a creature stood, its eyes shining like the girl's in the wheat field. Before I could get a good look, it darted into the woods. The strange events of that evening remained a mystery in my heart, and I often wonder if the tales of my family were more real than I ever imagined.